right, we're recording, so we'll kick things off, keep things moving on time here. So really appreciate everyone taking the time today. Mike Bogan here. I'm one of the co-founders, Chief Strategy Officer at Hubbl Technologies. Today we'll be talking about how to secure your org with regards to Salesforce Connected Apps and other aspects of the platform, given the sort of the current environment that is out there. Really appreciate you taking the time. We really sort of have this passion for democratizing success across the ecosystem through Salesforce partners, Salesforce themselves, and customers. And I know it's a busy time, so really appreciate you taking the time today. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been in the ecosystem about 12 years, joined a consulting partner when we were about 20 people, helped scale it up to about 1,500. It was acquired by Salesforce, and then since then have been focused on building out this platform that's helping people move faster and innovate in the Salesforce ecosystem. So what are we here for today? Primarily learning, right? This is just, I want this just to be a conversation around what's happening. Really, security is your responsibility. You need to secure your Salesforce org. Salesforce secures the platform, but you need to secure everything that's added to that platform. Some key points here in 2024, the FBI put out this SQL injection alert, which is related to Salesforce, as well as the connected apps alert that came out, given the circumstances that have been happening in the summer and even more recently and ongoing. We need to be aware of these issues and get an understanding of what's happening here. And so I want to take this kind of high level and think about the way you build your business. So you're building your business on top of Salesforce. Those are core capabilities like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, the industries. These are the core pieces of the platform that Salesforce provides to you when you subscribe to the orgs. And then every business wants to customize Salesforce. There's specific processes, things that just aren't coming out of the box. That's where things like a custom object comes in. You know, you can build a custom object for anything. If you wanted to build one for trees, you can, and you can customize that object to store information. And then what you do is you use custom code to make automations beyond what's out of the box with Salesforce. That can be anything from Apex, LWC, the older Visualforce, you name it. But today we're going to focus on these concepts of installed packages and connected apps. And these are two pieces of the ecosystem that are pretty interesting because they basically solve this challenge where there's customizations that you want to add to your business that have been seen by many others. And so others, companies or individuals have created packages or apps that can be added to Salesforce to provide more functionality. And so why is it important to understand this and understand sort of how your org is built and where this metadata comes from is basically because it helps you make better design decisions and it helps you secure your org. You need to know where things are built, where it's actually come from, and how it impacts the decisions you need to make about your design as well as your security. And the challenge, of course, is that there's just a lot of metadata in the org, so the way the org is configured. When we were benchmarking this a few years ago, like 24,000 metadata items on average in an org, just a huge number. It's even higher than that, but really the way to think about this is if you went into setup and started clicking on and looking through the way everything is set up in your org and you looked at everything for 5 seconds, it would take you 4 days of continuous clicking, just looking through the org itself. It's just too much to manage without using some form of automation. And that's obviously where Hubbl fits in. Today, we'll be talking about the installed packages assessor, where we help you understand the apps that have been installed inside of your org. And then we'll be talking about the connected app intelligence as well, where we're looking at apps that are external to the org and connected to the org itself. I want to make sure too, people, this is just a conversational. So if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. I'm more than willing to make this conversational because that's the way I like to do these. So just thinking about this, think about the source of the metadata and the way your org is configured. So in most orgs, over 25% of the metadata is namespaced. And so what does that mean? What is this namespaced concept, and why do you need to care about what namespacing is? So namespacing is a technical term in the notation in Salesforce. So the easiest way to think about this is sort of as we were walking through that stack. The core objects you subscribe to in Salesforce, these objects, when you look at the API name, there's no suffix or prefix on those objects. So simple example, everyone uses contact, right? The contact object from Salesforce just has the word contact to describe it. If you went in, and how I was saying you could build the trees object, for example. If you went in and built a contact custom object, that custom object then gets this suffix _c. So it helps you understand that this object is the custom version of that object labeled contact. Definitely not best practices, but just for the sake of the example here, right? Now, like I said before, businesses are creating packaged or apps for Salesforce that can be installed in Salesforce and added to Salesforce, and they might want to have a contact object too. So this concept of namespacing comes in. And so namespacing is this prefix that can go in front of that custom object to let you know where it came from. So what that means is when a package is installed in your org, you can keep track of all the metadata that's related to that specific package, so you can understand how that org is configured. So this is critical for you understanding sort of where the security issues lie in your org, where these are coming from when you're digging into your actual setup itself. But let's step back here. So what are these installed packages, these things that are being installed in your org? So the App Exchange, think about the App Exchange. It was launched, it's amazing. It's 20 years next year, launched in 2006. Over 10 million installs, probably up to 15 million installs by now. This is 2022 data. The App Exchange allowed businesses to install apps into their business and get moving. And so the key part of these apps is that they're installed packages that go inside the org. And there's thousands of these apps available, and over 90% of customers have an App Exchange app installed in their org. And the average org with about 30 packages in them, there's many that have over 200. The important point here is that an app that's on the App Exchange has gone through the security review process with Salesforce. So thinking about this from the security lens, you can trust that Salesforce has put that particular application through a process where they've reviewed the custom code that's inside of it, and when it's installed in your org, it has gone through that security review process. Now, there's other types of installed packages. They're private listings. Literally anyone who has a developer org can create a collection of custom objects like that trees object with some custom code, some Apex, whatever it is, and they can create a package. And then they can provide a link to that package to be installed in your org, and that's a private listing. That private listing has not gone through a security review. And Salesforce says directly in their terms that you need to review these apps, you need to inspect the application and determine whether it should actually be installed in your org. So this is a bit of a policy piece you need to understand. And if you're taking over, or you have taken over a Salesforce org, for example, you need to understand whether the packages that are in your org have been security reviewed or not. This is something that is definitely worth digging into. All right, going a layer deeper. So what else do you need to know? So there's different types of packages. So we talked about this namespace concept. We've talked about the security reviews. There are managed, unmanaged, and unlocked packages. So managed packages are important to understand because these packages, you don't have access to the code in these packages. They actually allow the ability to push upgrades into them. And if they're on the App Exchange, they obviously require that review process. Then there's unmanaged packages, and those unmanaged packages, they don't require that namespacing. They can't push upgrades, and you do have access to that code. And then there's unlocked ones where you also have access to the code. So when you're reviewing your installed packages, you just want to have an understanding of whether you know what the code is that's in there, whether you trust that publisher, and get an understanding of what's actually happening in your org. Now, there's a whole nother layer on top of these packages, because the developers who created them, they're constantly changing and improving their product. They might be uncovering security issues, resolving those. They might be adding new features. So what that means is that these packages have versions, and these versions are something that's really interesting. So we dug into this in our benchmarking work, and we found that the average org in the most recent data has about 8 packages that have new versions available. And at the same time, there's about 10 packages in a Salesforce org that have not been security reviewed on average. So these are packages that you definitely need to review and get an understanding of what's happening in here. So the fact that 99% of Salesforce orgs have out-of-date packages in our early work, and now it's down to about 94% that we've seen, it implies that you should get an understanding of whether those new versions are available to you, and whether there's new features that you could take advantage of. So the real question here is, why is it so hard to keep these packages up to date? I just saw a question come through there. What's your perspective on users installing the Salesforce Inspector as a browser extension? Are these extensions more susceptible to security risks, and is there a way to detect their usage or restrict or block them? Yeah, so those browser extensions, so this is obviously one that's become a hot topic as well. So getting an understanding of how those are, so I'll just say straight up, many organizations just completely block those browser extensions due to security issues there. I think that's the most straightforward way to approach that. Yeah, we can definitely provide the slides afterwards as well. So these installed packages, why is it so hard? Why is it 90 to 9? Why is it over 90% of orgs have out-of-date packages? The way to think about this is that we use these devices to manage our lives. We install apps in here, and these devices tell us when those apps are out of date. We've been installing apps in Salesforce for almost 20 years now, right? Launched in 2006. We've never had a way to know whether those packages are out of date and whether there's new versions available. There's never been an automated way. It's manual. And to manually do this, you need to go into install packages in setup. You need to find your packages. You need to find that version number, and then you need to go and you need to search on the App Exchange. You need to find that package. You need to do a few more clicks, get down to the app details, and find the version number there. If you do all that work, it's great. But the challenge is that those numbers, we've built many packages ourselves back in the consulting days, and obviously as an ISV partner, those package version numbers are updated manually by the publishers, and those can be incorrect. So even though you've done all that work, you might get to a place where you don't even know if that's the newest version that's available. And then those private listings I was talking about, I mean, you're basically just out of luck. You need to contact that individual publisher. Maybe they've been sending update emails, but it was installed by someone 7 years ago who's not even at the company anymore, and you don't even get access to those. So you need to track those down manually yourself. Right. So what does this mean? What are the consequences of all of this? Well, you could be exposed to security vulnerabilities because you might not have the newest version of the package. Speed. We're not going to go deep into this today, but there's real impacts. There's so many orgs out there that have packages that have old versions, that have workflow rules in them, that are just, they're sitting on the case object, and they're just slowing down the entire org or on the opportunity. And because those automations are slow, it's literally slowing down the org and hurting adoption inside of the org. And then the other one is just, you could straight up just be missing amazing features from these packages that have been delivered by the developers, and you don't have access to them because you don't have the newest version available. So it's just something to keep in mind there. So when we saw those numbers, when we did that first benchmarking, we felt like we had to help the ecosystem here. We had to develop a way to make this automatic. So we've invented a way to detect those out-of-date versions in the packages. And so this is the package, install package assessor inside of Hubbl. So once you take that couple of minutes, run a Hubbl scan, you'll get the deep dive on packages. You'll get an understanding of whether they're security reviewed, whether they're managed, and whether they have a new version available for you. And so it'll tell you the version number that you have, the version number that's the most recent one, and you can interactively filter through all of these. It saves you a huge amount of time, and it'll also, because if you set it up to schedule, you'll actually get notifications when those new apps come available to you as well. You also even see the sort of the record counts, which packages are being used the most, if they're object-driven packages, and that helps you understand where you need to focus. The other part that comes up is once you identify these packages that are out of date, you want to dig deep and just answer the question, are we even using this package? I mean, I don't know, somebody else installed it, or there's all kinds of scenarios you come into here. And so what we do is we do a deep dive into the packages so that you can see the record counts that are coming for these individual objects. You can see when they were last updated, and we even do the field utilization, so you can see how many records have a value in those specific fields themselves. And all of this is completely interactive. So we just look at this inside of the product. You can get an understanding of what's happening inside of the org. You can sort through these packages, dig deeper into individual packages themselves. And like I said, you want to get a hold of a few items. You want to understand whether these packages are being used, but you do really want to understand which packages are out of date, which packages have not been security reviewed. And if you see packages that haven't been security reviewed and they are managed, you need to get an understanding of whether you trust the actual publisher that's providing these packages, because those are scenarios where, like I said earlier, you can't see the code that's in those packages that are running inside of your org. All right. Haven't been able to track the questions here, so we'll see.
We do have one for you now, Mike. The rest is us talking about slides. Yeah. Are you going to be addressing connected apps that are not installed?
Sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, are you going to be addressing connected apps that are not installed?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's the next phase. Yep. Yeah. So okay. So that is digging into connected apps or installed packages. I'll move into connected apps in just 1 second. Just wanted to summarize this piece here. So you can, what this basically allows you to do is save a huge amount of time. So if you're doing a manual audit on these apps, it would take you a couple of hours. The average org has 30 apps. So it's going to take you a huge amount of time just to audit those apps themselves. With Hubbl, it takes you a couple minutes to run the scan, 15 minutes to dig into those apps, have conversations. So you're saving 85–90% of the time. And that's if you did a single review. The real challenge is that you should be doing this frequently. You should be doing it monthly. You should understand whether there's new versions available. And that's why this whole problem exists, that these apps become out of date because it's manual. And now that you can do this in an automated way, this helps resolve that particular issue. And getting directly to your question, what about the apps that aren't installed, right? So what are these connected apps? Why should you actually monitor them? And what are some of the best practices here? So connected apps, the easiest way to think about this is an app that is external to Salesforce. So we talked about packages that get installed in the org to come from the app exchange or private listings. Connected apps are external to the org, and they connect to Salesforce, and they access the data in Salesforce to provide some capabilities. You're using connected apps. Many of you are using connected apps without even knowing it. For example, the Salesforce mobile app is a connected app that allows you to access the data on your mobile device. So how do they actually work? So those install packages with Apex, these custom objects, all these capabilities, those are built directly on Salesforce. And connected apps are different. They don't run directly on the Salesforce platform. They're external to it, and they're connected to the APIs. They leverage standard protocols like SAML, OAuth, OpenID, and they combine that with Salesforce APIs to provide things like authentication, authorization, so that they can access the orgs. There's Many of you have asked for the decks here. There's some resources I've provided in here as well. There's a great talk, this Securing Connected Apps talk from TDX a few years ago. It goes into all kinds of depths in a nice high level manner that helps you understand what's happening here as well. All right, so let's do an example of what's going on here. So we're all thinking about securing our orgs. What is actually happening with connected apps? So data loader is a great example. I've got sales team users. They want to install data. They want to get data inside of the org. So that end user authorizes the app to actually perform actions on the org and access the data. And those end users, what they're doing is they're granting access to the org based on these OAuth scopes. And these OAuth scopes are provided by that developer that created the connected app. And those end users then allow the app to have that access. So then what happens is that the end user gets redirected in the data loader scenario, gets redirected to a web app that allows them to do the work that they want to do. They install, they import this data, and they do their job. But the app itself is connected, and it still has that ability to import data, but it also has the ability to export data. And so if you think about this, what's actually happening in the background? So that end user allowed access to the org. So one question that often comes up is, is the user giving credentials to that external app? They're not actually giving their credentials. OAuth allows them to do that secure data sharing without revealing the credentials, but the scopes that are in here are actually defined and selected by the developers of the app itself. A very important point, though, is that user who granted access, that actually bounds the permissions of the app itself. And this will get into important concepts around sort of least privileges. So if your users are connecting apps to the org, you want to make sure that those users have least privileges to data inside of the org. So think about this. So that was the end user experience, right? So think about this as an administrator. Should I monitor connected apps? Should I be thinking about this? Obviously, everyone is here to think about this. People are obviously thinking about this everywhere in the organization or in the ecosystem. So think about what happened. The end user granted access to the org to a third-party app. That app can now access the org. It can perform actions even if that person isn't there. And there was no administrative oversight in this process. So clearly it feels like this is a scenario where we should be monitoring this. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the best practice that's been followed. And I'm not going to go into the depths of the details. There's been all kinds of scenarios where social engineering has been used to actually access these connected apps and extract data out of the orgs. And so that social engineering is one of the challenges that we all face in terms of being able to stop access to this. But what we can manage directly in the Salesforce orgs is who has access, how they access it, and what are those permissions that are in there. And you're not alone in terms of what's actually happening in the ecosystem. We've done the benchmarking work against this, and what we're seeing is that the average Salesforce org has about 50% of the apps in the org allow this ability to self-authorize, which means that the app is connected and work can be done through a self-authorized approach. And then 38% of them don't even have any of the security controls applied. So we'll talk about how we can apply those security controls and how we can lock down that self-authorization. And then 28% of the apps, the connected apps that we're seeing out there, they don't have any users at all. And then 52% of those apps aren't being used. So I'll dig deeper in here. Is there any questions? Yeah. So how do we lock down the users to grant access? So I'll dig into some of those features. How are Salesforce's own connected apps security different than other publishers' apps? So you still have the ability to control those, and I'll actually show you an example in a second around how you can lock down the Salesforce ones. Now, they're still connected apps, and they still have that ability to self-authorize. So those are also apps that you should ultimately lock down. All right, so looking at connected apps inside of Salesforce setup, this is honestly just directly a slide taken from that TDX talk. Basically, when you go into setup, look at connected apps, you look at that OAuth usage, what you're able to see is the app itself, the number of users, and you can see whether the app has been installed or whether it's uninstalled or whether it's blocked. And so that allows you to get an understanding of, are the security controls actually in place for this particular app, or is this app being fully self-authorized? If you dig in deeper, you can actually see the individual users that are using this app, and you can see when they last used it as well. You also have the ability to just revoke access to them. Now, when you're managing these apps, there's a few things you can do. So getting to these questions of like, what can we do from a security perspective? So number one is this concept of install. And so install is it's a weird term that's used here. You're not installing anything. The best way to think about it is you're just basically activating the security controls for that org. And what it's doing, I think the term install here is leveraged because of the idea that once you install it, you're basically applying local controls to that connected app, because that connected app is connected to many orgs. It's controlling your own local settings. And so to do that, you're going into connected apps, OAuth usage, and you're clicking on install to actually install those security controls. And it's a really sort of straightforward process to install those and activate those security controls. There's other things you can do. You can block it. You can straight up blocking it basically means that no users will have access to that org, and that you'll also see that on connected apps as well on the OAuth usage page. All right, now there's one other one, and that's whitelisting. And so whitelisting is much deeper. It means that all the connected apps get restricted until the admin actually goes in and approves them. But it actually requires Salesforce to enable those. And so there's some steps there that you need to actually go through. So most importantly, what does Salesforce actually recommend on this? Basically, they're saying that every admin user who's responsible for managing connected apps, which is basically any Salesforce product owner, you need to go in and you need to review your connected apps and your OAuth usage and identify the apps that are uninstalled and they're currently being used. So if we look back at this page, so these apps, because they have the install button here, it means that they are uninstalled. And if you look at this, there's a user count here. There's a 1 in this scenario. So you're looking for these apps that are being used that are not installed. Okay, so you need to make an inventory of those, and then you need to decide, do you trust this app? And if you do, you need to install it and actually control the security of who has access to it. Any of the apps that you see in there that you don't trust, you don't know what they are, those should be blocked from Salesforce's perspective. Okay, so then what you need to do is you need to install those trusted connected apps. So this is what I've been showing you in that screenshot. You're basically going to setup, you're selecting connected apps, OAuth usage, you find that app, you click install, and it'll show you the install page, and then you just click install again. It's really straightforward. What does that do for you? Basically, installing it activates the security controls. So now you can go in and you can control who has access to it. And the most important thing here is this concept of managing the permitted users. And so this all users may self-authorize piece, this is what allowed those breaches to occur where they once they have access to the org and the connected app, they can self-authorize against it to extract the data. And this is the default setting, is that all users may self-authorize. Salesforce recommends that it is set to admin approved users are pre-authorized. So that's the second menu item. And what that means is it allows only the users with the associated profile permission to access the app. And this is essentially what you need to do. You need to go through your apps you need to install them, and you need to assign who has access to them. So the way to think about this is if we go into the org, and there was a question around sort of Salesforce's apps as well. Sorry, I'll make this a bit bigger so you can actually see it. So for example, Chatter Desktop. So if I look at Chatter Desktop, it's in a scenario where admin approved users are pre-authorized. If I dig into this particular app, you can see that the policies are in place here. If I edit these policies, this is where the majority of the apps will be set to authorize, all users may self-authorize, because this is the default setting on these apps. And so if I save this, you'll see when you go in and look at apps, most of the apps in your org will have that setting of all users may self-authorize. And if you look down below, there's no way to control profiles and permissions against this particular app. So if I flip this back and put it into admin approved users are pre-authorized, what you'll see is that you'll get the message around, you can check out this report to look at who's actually using it. But most importantly, what you'll see is once you approve this and save it, you'll see a change down below here. So now you can see the profiles and the permission sets that have access to the app. This is where this app is now installed. It is set to admin approved users are pre-authorized. Now you can go in and you can manage the profiles and permissions that have access to it. There's currently one profile in this org that has access to Chatter Desktop. It's the checkout profile. So you could go in and you could select another profile to grant access to it if you wanted to. Now, the new world, of course, that we're all moving into is that majority of things will be controlled in permission sets. So probably a good idea to approach this from a permission set perspective and leverage permission sets as your ability to grant access to these connected apps that you have in place in your org. And that question earlier was around, what about Salesforce's Connected App? This is an exact example, one of Salesforce's Connected Apps, Chatter Desktop, where you can control that security around there as well. All right.
Mike, we had one more question come through as well. Giannis wanted to know, will we also be covering packaged external client apps and the differences regarding auditing and managing them?
No, I wasn't planning on going into that today. That's sort of the new world, those external client apps. So I wasn't planning on going that today, but we can follow up with another session on that as well. All right. So this gives you a sense of how you can control these apps and how you can assign profiles or permissions that you already have in your org, or you can create new ones to be able to control what's actually happening there. And you also see there's a bunch of other controls around in here in terms of the scopes that are available for these apps and a few other things that are in here. But we're just primarily focused on this concept of getting an understanding of what's in there and whether these apps are managed, installed, etc. All right. So that gives you a sense of how to take a look at those inside of setup, get an understanding of what's happening in the org. But things are always changing in the Salesforce ecosystem, as we know. That's one of the amazing advantages of Salesforce, is the pace that they're innovating. When the breaches were discovered earlier this year, in September, there's some changes that were made. These have already been rolled out, but it's useful to be aware of them. Any of these apps that were uninstalled in your org that didn't have the security controls in place, they still work. People can continue to use them. And if someone has already authorized that app, it still works. And it still doesn't have the security controls. They're still working the way they are. Any new user who's trying to get into that uninstalled app, they're going to be blocked. So the way to think about this is Salesforce has helped you by blocking these people who are trying to access these uninstalled apps. The connected apps that were installed before, they'll continue to function, no changes there. But what they did do is they introduced some new permissions. These are really really powerful permissions. So do you want to dig deep into these, get an understanding of the very limited number of users that you would ever want to access these? So one of them is approving uninstalled connected apps, and the other one is using any API client. So these are permissions that Salesforce launched after the current scenarios. And so you definitely want to get an understanding of who has access to these, and you have to actually assign these to your end users. And it's definitely something you want to use sparingly. I'm trying to figure out what this question is. Do you see button? I've connected apps that I've explicitly set to admin for users, and it works as expected. However, in the connected apps list view, unpermitted users, it shows all users are authorized. But again, if I click the app itself, it shows. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what. So it sounds like, I don't know if someone just wants to chime in. It sounds like.
Yeah, Kyle or Chris, you should be able to go off mute if you want to add some color and talk through the bug you're seeing in Connected.
I think you're actually talking about inside of Hubbl, looking at the actual.
Oh no, sorry. No, it's not in Hubbl. It's just in my org itself. I've explicitly set my apps to admin approved users, and it's on the connected app itself. But in this list view, what you're seeing right here, it still shows all users may self-authorize. So it's kind of,
oh, that's weird.
I don't know. So yeah, random. Sorry.
Oh, interesting. No, that's interesting. So let's talk through that. I think I understand what you're saying. So, okay, so I've set this app to admin approved users are already pre-authorized. So then when I go back to connected apps on Chatter desktop, admin approved, okay. So then what you're saying is that when you came in and you set this.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems to be just occurring for these third-party apps or apps I've installed myself, not necessarily like Chatter, Workbench, Salesforce IQ, and whatnot.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that, see if there's any other examples that we find there. But it sounds like it's something to do on the Salesforce side. Not sure there.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And it sounds like multiple people have seen that in their org, which is kind of interesting. All right. Well, we'll dig into that. So, all right. So now that we've gone through sort of that journey in connected apps and all that stuff, how can you actually use Hubbl to help you manage your connected apps? So I'm going to walk through sort of some of the functionalities and features here that help you do this. Scheduled scans being one of them, helps you automatically track, get notifications. The action plan is going to basically automatically build your list of things that you need to tackle. Recommendations will give you the deep understanding of what's happening there, including things like being able to build Jira tickets so that you can assign out to your developers and get AI prompts to fix things like those SQL injection issues that the FBI alerted in 24. Then we'll dig into the connected app intelligence where we can see what's actually happening in all of your connected apps. And I also want to talk about profiles, permissions, and then how you use issue lifecycle management and just monitoring over time to be able to track the org. One of the things I'm not going to be able to dig into is this securing process compliance. So using process intelligence. The other side of the platform, we're focused on org intelligence today. If you want to look at the way data is moving to the org, you would focus on the process intelligence side of things, but we'll have to do that next time. All right, so scheduling scans. So basically, it takes you a couple minutes to create a Hubbl account, set up the scan. And there's a 30-day trial that will give you access to all these capabilities. You basically automate your monitoring by setting the schedule of when you want to run a scan. You can run a single scan if you wanted to, or you can just set it up to run monthly. And you can run that scan right now, or you can select, hey, I want to do it monthly on the last Friday or the last Saturday of the month at 2 a.m., whatever it is. Just scheduling that allows you to just collect data. And because you'd be able to track and trend over time to how these connected apps are being used, it's really helpful. And then what happens is that once Hubbl analyzes the way things are configured in your org, it generates this action plan. We put the metadata through scoring thresholds, we identify issues, and we typically rank these security issues as high priority. And so this action plan, this example is pointing out the SOCL injection issues at FBI alert in 24, and then the connected apps that are an issue in this particular org. It's that second FBI alert that's come out. And this just gives you a high level, hey, these are things you should be digging into. But then you can dig into an individual recommendation and get even deeper. But most importantly, we take all of the recommendation, and we've been talking all about security today. There's all kinds of optimization opportunities here, adoption, data governance. These get aligned by the severity of the issue and the level of effort to address them in your org. And then you have an interactive dashboard. It's basically a roadmap to start optimizing the org itself. And that helps you organize your work in there. And all of this is aligned to the Salesforce well-architected framework. We started building that in 22 when it was soft launched at TDX. And then what you can do is when you get that recommendation, you basically use the Jira integration to generate a Jira ticket, so you can assign it directly into your developers. You can also see these little AI stars. Every single issue that gets uncovered in Hubbl, we generate an AI prompt automatically for you. So then you can leverage things like Agentforce Vibes to fix those issues. And then connected app intelligence. This is the dashboard. We can actually dive deeper in here, but essentially what it's doing is it's summarizing all that information where we had to click through in multiple screens and figure out all that information in Salesforce. This is helping you organize this. It's all sortable, it's filterable. You can see which of your apps are installed. You can see when they were last used, when they were first connected, and then you can see this admin approved users only piece. And it sounds like if there's an issue inside of the list views in Salesforce, that's kind of concerning, but we'll have to resolve what that is. I'm not sure what that is. But you can also see the usage counts. So the user count is basically the number of users that you have access to that have access to the connected app, and then the usage count is the number of times that API is being called. And so this helps you understand where the high frequency usages are coming in. And then all of this is filterable. And so if I look at this in product, we talked about the installed packages, looking at connected apps and the connected app intelligence. Here you can see in that org, this is the same org that I was just working in with that Chatter desktop. So now you can see that Chatter desktop, it's a namespaced connected app. It is installed. So remember, we were able to set it so that the admin, it was admin approved users only. And when this scan was run, there was no, it wasn't actually set to it was still set to self-authorized. You can also see there's that one profile, that checkout profile that has access to it. And then, but it's not actually being used. We're not using Chatter Desktop in this org. But if I dig into the Chatter Desktop app, I can see there's details. If there's a description available in the metadata API, it'll give you that description, and it'll also show you the profile that has access to it. So this summarizes all that information for you, and it'll provide you all those details for all of your connected apps. So you might want to sort of find all the ones that are admin approved only, or you might want to filter down to apps that aren't being used so that you can lock them down or block them. Because a common scenario that happens is that if there's no users and there's no usage, essentially they aren't actually, and they're self-authorized, it's essentially just increasing your attack surface unnecessarily. So you should try to lock those ones down as well. And so all of these scenarios where things like the admin approved users only is not applied, this is, like I was showing earlier, this will show up in your recommendations so that you can actually action across those. So if I dig into these ones, you'll see these connected app recommendations, and you'll get more details around those specific connected apps and how you can address those. All right. So that gives you a sense of the way the connected app intelligence works in the platform. And then what you can do is, like I said earlier, you can dig into those recommendations, create Jira tickets. Once you identify those particular issues, you can assign them if you have a developer who's working on it, or somebody else an admin who owns the org. You can basically send an issue to them in the place that they work inside of Jira if you're using Jira. So the other thing I want to hit on too is profiles and permissions. This is basically what we're trying to do here is just highlight your risky profiles and permissions. So examples: modify all data, exporting data, managing sharing, things like that. What the profiles and permissions dashboard is doing is giving you the ability to identify the number of assignments you have across these risky permissions. And remember, these connected apps, when you connect them, the user that has access to it is basically controlling the permissions that it has as well. And so what that means is that people need to use connected apps in their orgs. It's just the way that it functions. But it really motivates you to this concept of principles of least privilege. That's also why Salesforce is moving to these permission sets. It just makes it easier to manage across all of your users and grant people the ability to access these connected apps and then control those permission sets that are in there. Definitely recommend just going into your org, understanding who has modifiable data. There's really common scenarios where users are granted modifiable data to get around something, and then basically someone forgets to retract it from that user, and so there's all kinds of users that have access to it that shouldn't have access to it. All right, and then the way Hubbl works is it's a monitoring product, right? So you basically track this over time. This is issue lifecycle management. Each of these bars is another scan in time, and what this is doing is showing you the light blue ones are issues and opportunities that have been discovered and they already exist. The light green ones are the ones that have been resolved over time. And so this helps you basically track those issues, helps you identify these dark blue ones or new ones that have popped up. So for example, in today, we've been talking about if there was a new version of one of your apps that came available, it would show up here as a new recommendation. If one of your apps was uninstalled or new connected app was installed in your org and it wasn't set to self-authorized, it would show up here automatically, and you would get a notification that lets you know that this is happening and helps you stay ahead and be proactive in your monitoring. It'll also help you just report back progress that's actually being made as well. Process intelligence, like I said, we don't have time to dig into this today, but just a very quick glimpse. What it's allowing you to do is actually dig in and get an understanding of the way the data is moving through the org. So org intelligence has looked at the metadata, the configuration, the way that the org is built. Process intelligence is a completely new lens in Salesforce. So this is the first time that process mining has ever been built directly on the Salesforce platform. It allows you to view, this is the case object, and allowing you to look at all of the cases going from open to closed. The white boxes are statuses, green arrows are fast paths, red arrows are slow paths and bottlenecks. So this helps you measure process compliance and understand from a data-driven lens the security surrounding the data in your specific processes in Salesforce. All right, we was kind of wrapping things up. We'll share the deck. There's some resources in here as well. There's all kinds of alerts, things coming from Salesforce around connected app management. There'll be more details in there. The more recent notifications around changes, that TDX security talk is a great one to dig into as well. And that Salesforce Ben article around what is namespace metadata will be useful as well. But like I said, you can start a 30-day trial on Hubbl anytime. You'll get access to those full capabilities, dig into your org. And I mean, we talked about this, I've kind of talked about the whole time through a single org perspective, but I know many of you out there are in multi-org environments, and being able to understand quickly what is happening across your multiple orgs is really challenging. And we've had people come in the trial and in literally 21, they can, in 21, in 40 minutes, someone has come in and scanned 21 orgs to get their security profile across all of their connected apps and installed packages in 40 minutes. And it's just mind-blowing the pace that you can move and get get the understanding there. So it's been a lot of fun sort of helping the ecosystem in these challenges. And so just feel free to reach out. If you have any questions, we can dig in even deeper, but feel free to reach out to me anytime. Looks like there's another one here.
Yeah, there's a good question here from Leah.
Okay. The team of one, right? The team of one challenge. That's, yeah. Yeah, so it's a great question. So I think, I mean, one of the part of this journey, part of the reason we have put this together is this sort of ability to take the recommendations and rank them by severity and level of effort to address. So the way that a lot of people tackle this, and like you said, it's overwhelming. There's a lot in here. Like, look, there's like 16,000 things in here. You know, these are big numbers. You're not alone, but remember, some of these things are documentation, like fields don't have descriptions, things like that. But in terms of prioritizing them, this is part of the reason why we did this matrix. A lot of people in the solo admin, or if you're working with a consultant or not, if you start with the lowest effort, highest severity type of issues, like who has access to modifiable data? Are there specific ways to secure the org from security health check risks? So we run the security health check in here as well. And a lot of businesses will move across in this direction. For those that have access to developers right away, some will target these deeper issues in the custom code that's in the org. So for example, these SOCL injection issues where the FBI put out that alert, and then obviously the connected apps piece that we've talked through here as well. You can also filter this down and sort of focus on things that are coming from packages themselves, as well as ones that aren't. If you look at the ones that aren't namespaced, that means these are things that you can actually address directly yourself. Hopefully that helps. I mean, it's a big conversation. It's a challenge. There's a lot going on because the balance is always between security, features that the business needs themselves to get moving, and then the other part, of course, is just innovating, like getting to the next part of the business is asking for new processes, new capabilities, and you as a solo admin trying to manage all of that, it's pretty challenging. But like I said, the ability to at least know what's happening and to be able to whittle away at these specific pieces is really helpful. So hopefully that helps a bit.
It does. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome.
Well,
yeah,
I have
great
one
point from
other
Kimberly too is let's check out the
sorry.
nonprofit best practices resources as well. Go ahead, Lee.
Thanks, Kimberly. With budget, I'm also curious if you would have a recommendation. We've met up at Tahoe Dreaming a couple times, so I've gotten to I've gotten to see demos and stuff. Do you have a recommendation about, because you have multiple products now?
Yeah.
Do you have sort of start here, like this would be for a constrained budget or team of one who, I do have no developers, on my team, so everything is external. So everything I do, I have to ask for money,
right?
And justify it. And so I'm trying to figure out like how to prioritize that ask as well in terms of, I know that I would install everything today if I could, because I've seen how powerful it is. But yeah, do you think, and I know it depends on the org and it depends on a lot of other factors, and it again might not be a conversation for this call, but
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely follow up. I mean, the platform itself. So we've been talking about the org intelligence side of the platform. In your scenario, you would probably narrow in on the org intelligence. Most of our customers just purchase the full platform itself because there's advantages there. But from your size, the way that you're sort of the conversations we've had in the past too, that's something we can definitely dig into. We can connect offline.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I think Paul has a question.
Oh, hey, Paul.
Hey, how are you guys?
Fantastic.
Just a quick question, like what you're showing here, for example, and if we have a high severity recommendation or thing identified, and say, for example, where default external access, you have some of it opened up because of a business need. Is there a way to mark that particular one like that's okay? You know,
it's a great question. So you're not alone. We've had that asked many times, and that's part of the thank you too, is the feedback we've had over the years has been amazing. So this is actually in our roadmap. It's coming, Paul. So you basically, what you are asking is basically, can I essentially ignore or flag specific recommendations so that I don't have to keep having them pop up all the time? And that capability is coming.
Cool. Yeah, like the ability. Yes, and maybe this is where that roadmap piece is going, where I'll call it like comment and suppress, because I want to be able to put a comment in so that if someone comes in from audit, be like, why did you suppress that? Oh, because we have B2B commerce and we need to allow these particular objects to be public so that you can see the products.
Yeah,
you know,
you got it.
Kind of business rules that are reasons to not follow the strictest view of the best practices.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And yeah, like I said, inbound. The other thing to actually back leads to your question, one of the things that we've launched recently that you didn't see when we were at Tahoe Dream is we do have an AI architect that the feedback we've always gotten is, how can I make it just bring the information to me to make it easier for me to make these decisions? And so what we've done is we basically built pre-built prompts that work with an AI architect that helps you analyze the results that are in here. There's way more metadata. There's so much information in these scans that this AI architect is going to help you resolve some of that. And for you as a solo admin, this helps you understand and dig deeper and get information from the org and these results analysis that you may not have been able to even think about or even know to even ask those questions, right? And so we're always looking for more feedback on how to make that even easier as well. And then if you choose, like if you end up getting the scenario where you're working with a consulting partner or you have a new team member come on, we've also created this capability where you can share the scans. It's like, think of it almost like a Google Doc where you can just put in the email address and you can share the results with your team members as well. It's really straightforward.
Is there a roadmap item on that one where, say, you share to the same group of people and you do this scan on a monthly basis, and instead of having to reshare the new snapshot of it, like to put it into like a folder or some other way to it's getting into the sort of the account management side of things. There's a few pieces you can obviously add. As an admin, you can add users into your account if they're if it makes sense for it to work that way. But I'll take that back. It's interesting in terms of automatically sharing a scheduled scan. Scheduled, I think, is a big thing. Like if it's not scheduled, I'd say, that's on us to do it. But if it's scheduled, you're like, I always want to give it to these group of developers.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I only want to schedule it once, and I want those same 3 people to see it every time. Then that makes sense. Yeah, I like that. We'll take it back and see how that fits in.
Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. If there's not any other questions, just like I said, feel free to reach out. More than happy to answer any questions anytime. If you decide that you want to run a trial, happy to dig into results, give you an understanding of what's actually happening in your org. And so you can move forward much more quickly. And thanks everyone for the time and attention. Appreciate it. Enjoy the holiday breaks coming up. I know it's a mix of like rest and also a time for a lot of the people who own Salesforce. It's a good time for them to dig in, get under, because there's less users around who are pinging you for things. So enjoy the break, and see you in the new year as well. Cheers.